Hi everybody and welcome back to Lost Genre Reddit Stories. This post is from the subreddit Relationship Advice and it's by user Thurare Son of Sans. My 35 male mother's 58 male new fiance wants me to call him dad. He's 24. How do I navigate this? Please buckle in because this is all so weird. I'm a 35-year-old man and for some backstory, my dad died when I was 19. Leaving my mom with me and my two siblings. I'm the oldest. It took some time, but eventually my mom started dating again. We don't live together per se, but our houses back onto each other and have a gate, so it's pretty common for her to offer to do my laundry or me just go over for dinner or go look after our dog. That kind of stuff. Plus, me and my siblings go over there for dinner every other Friday night or so. A bit after she started, the man she's been dating have been getting younger and younger, and I've never had a problem with them. She's been very open to me and my siblings that she wants to get married again, and we've always been supportive. At least after the initial shock, lol. The latest guy is by far the most serious, and they've been dating since around last June? He proposed at the start of autumn and they want to get married next summer. Again, me and my siblings are fine with this because it's her life and we trust him. He's a nice guy and they clearly love each other. But anyway, so long story short is, this weekend her fiance, let's call him Phil, calls me and asks me if I could come over. I say, yeah, sure, I'll be over after work. And I assumed he just needed help with some do-it-yourself stuff they're doing. When I get over there, he calls me Sport and says, we need to talk. I should mention this is something he does to me and my little brother, calling us things like kid, sport, scout, little buddy, or my personal favorite, calling us red and blue, seemingly out of nowhere. My brother is 30 by the way. He tried it with my 28-year-old little sister too and called her princess once, but he stopped when she just stared at him. So the thing with Phil is that he reminds me a lot of Charlie Day's character in Horrible Bosses in that his sole ambition has always been to meet a girl, get married, and have a family. When he told me and my brother this, my brother made some joke about how maybe our mom's going to come short on the last part, and he got very upset, but they made up after. Anyway. So I go round and I ask if my mom's around and he says no, it's just him and that we really need to talk man to man. I say sure and he starts talking about how he's always wanted to be a father, etc. and races on to call his own, and then he drops a bombshell. He says, now I know I can never replace your father, the man who made you, but it would mean the world to me if you could call me dad. I'll admit it, I sniggered a little bit, and then I knew he was serious because he looked like he was about to cry. And he didn't drop it either. I asked if he really meant it, and he got really emotional and started talking about what it means to be a man and how his purpose is to have and provide for a family, and he wants me and my siblings to be part of that family. He reiterated he'll never replace my father, and this did rub me the wrong way a bit. But he's ready to step up and be my dad and provide for and protect me and my siblings. And I just sat there thinking, dude, I'm a decade older than you and live in a separate house. I don't need providing for, and even if I did, I don't think a guy who is 2/3 my age, who works part-time at the hardware store and is into collecting manga is the man to do it. No offense if you are into that, lol, I just don't know. I was a bit taken aback. I was in shock, so just said, okay, and he gets emotional again, but in a happy way, talking about how he wants to go camping or go to a baseball game. I don't even like baseball, LMAO. And how he joined the Lions this year, and how he wants to bring me into it too, as his boy, which just feels so surreal. Even more so as I'm a Shriner, so all this talk of service and charity isn't the brag he thinks he is. Because again, I'm 10 years older than this guy. Well, I ended it by just saying this has gotten a bit too weird and I was going home. He got very upset and I left. Called my brother and he agreed it sounds weird as F. Later, my mom called me and she wasn't disappointed but admitted it's made him very upset and depressed. I told her that if he's embarrassed, he doesn't need to be. I get he's excited about the marriage and we can just laugh this off as a funny story. She then said that wasn't what he was upset about. He, and she too a bit, is upset about the fact he poured his heart out and I rejected him. She said, yeah, it is a bit kooky, but this is how he proves to himself he's a man. And I guess I was a bit angry and said something like, first off, it's not my job to certify what's between his legs. And second, this doesn't prove he's a man. It just proves he's a nut job. I apologized immediately, but she said she didn't want to hear it and hung up. She called back 10 minutes later and we apologized and she begged me to just go along with it until he has some kids to call his own. I won't go too much into the details here, but she sort of let slip they plan to try IVF treatment because she's not ready to give up on being a mom just yet. And while I have my own thoughts about whether or not that's a good idea, I'm not here to litigate on that. We finished up fine and I reiterated I supported her and she agreed that it was definitely a stressful situation for me but begged me to at least think about it. Which leads me to here. I did think it over and obviously I'm going to say no. I had a dad and he died. Rest in peace, Dad. And that's the only dad I've ever needed, I've ever wanted, and I'll ever bestow that title on. I'm not asking if someone's unreasonable or what I should do, but rather what I should say. This clearly means a lot to him for some reason, and I deeply love my mom, so want to try and minimize the damage, especially as we're still so involved in each other's lives and they live behind me. How can I make it clear to them as painlessly as possible that I think this is weird and borderline offensive? I really don't want to rip the band-aid off because I fear what it might do to the family. Well, Opie, if that's the route you want to take, then I suggest you talk to your mom first. Again, one-on-one, not over the phone, and explain to her how this all is just super weird and you don't want to be a part of it. You can tell her that you support her. I think you might want to talk about other things, but you made it clear that you didn't want to. So just go with that and tell her that you won't be playing along because you can just say it makes you uncomfortable and you're not ready to call somebody else dad. What I would do if I was in your shoes, I would have a very serious conversation with my mom that I think both her and her fiance need some help. Based on the way you told us he requested this and how he calls you kid or sport or that kind of stuff, it's not normal. And your mom, I don't understand her saying she doesn't want to give up on being a mom. She had 3 kids, you and your siblings. So her wanting to go through the process of IVF just to have another kid, I don't think that's a responsible thing to do. And what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section, and now let's check out the community comments. Mariposa Fantastique says, I think both he and your mother have some serious delusions going on. Straight and to the point. Sergeant Pepper 1008 says, if it's so important to his personal identity to find a girl, have kids with her, and raise them as their dad, it seems like marrying a 58-year-old woman with adult children significantly older than himself is a pretty ineffective way to achieve those life goals. If it's so important to him, he should find someone his own age and make that happen the normal way. It's not your responsibility to make your mom's boy toy feel like a man. You're closer to being his much older brother than his son. Weird. Hats and Top Coats says, quote, Mom, I love you and I'll support you whatever relationship makes you happy, but I'm not going to participate in a weird charade where I'm a child getting a new stepfather. That's not a reasonable thing to ask of me, and I hope you and Phil can understand that. End quote. Hermit B says, quote, I'm not going to call you that because I feel it would be too disrespectful to my dad, who died when I was 19 and you were 8. And Kimikika says, I'd just be loudly laughing the whole time and wiping my tears from laughter. There's nothing you can do not to offend a 24-year-old man who wants a 35-year-old man to call him dad. He's gonna be offended no matter what. Shut that crap down. Have him call you by your first name or any nickname you go by exclusively. And don't worry about offending his feelings. He'll get over it. He's a big boy toy. And yeah, don't get involved in the crazy ass IVF thing at all. You wish them luck and that's it. Alright, so the community went about it from different angles, but overall, it's a weird situation. So now, let's move on to the update to see how this story ends. Anyway, so I told both my siblings and we agreed we'd collectively put our foot down with Phil at our next family dinner next week. Especially after an incident where Phil referred to my brother as sport and asked if he wanted to go see a baseball game with him. Admittedly, I was a bit spurred on by what you all said and got involved, pinging him back with, "Aw, no tickets for me, daddy? Sad face." And my brother responded with, "Daddy wants me all to himself. Hot winky face." Phil took a few minutes to respond before saying he was shocked, speechless, and disgusted. He then messaged me in private to say he was utterly appalled and that he'd never disrespect his own father the way you boys did. I kind of lost it at this point and said, "Right, that's because you're not my father, Phil. You're a 24-year-old man-child dating my mother. You have no right to my respect, especially not to the respect a father gets." I immediately said sorry, but then blocked his number and left the group chat. Apparently, he sent a similar thing to my brother who responded with more daddy stuff and Phil blocked him. Well, that aside, I don't think that family dinner is going ahead. After the original post blew up, it seems someone from his Lions Club found it and reported it to their chair or whatever, and Phil has either been expelled or resigned or in the process of one of the two. He has removed nearly all mentions of the Lions from his social media and no longer mentions being a member, with his last post on it being some cryptic goodbye post where he kind of drones on about what it means to be a man in the modern day and the duty of fatherhood bestowed on all men at birth. Really weird crap. My mom called me half in a panic, half in a rage about the stuff I'd been telling about him before breaking down and saying we need to meet, which we did and got my brother to go over too. I know he has temporarily moved back in with his parents in the next town over, but from my understanding, they still want to go ahead with the wedding. But I think that's more so because they've already spent money on it. When she said she was determined to have more kids, plural, my brother did step up and asked if she really thought that was a good idea at her age. And I pointed out that assuming she had the baby next year and she lived to 80, they wouldn't have finished college. She just stammered on about how people live longer these days before breaking down crying and admitting she's not ready to give up on mothering due to some deep-seated trauma and fears about the family breaking apart that I won't go into for her sake. When we reassured her that we weren't going anywhere, she calmed down and we had a very good and honest conversation where she's agreed to drop the IVF stuff on the grounds that it'd be too expensive and unlikely to get greenlit. She's still adamant it's scientifically possible and she should be allowed to do it from an ethical standpoint because she has to win that argument, but has agreed to look into fostering instead. Me and my brother highly doubt anything will ever come of that, so we're not that worried anymore. The very good news is she's also agreed to look into therapy or psychiatric help to deal with her trauma, and we've helped her get in touch with a nice lady in town to unpack all this in a more healthy way. So at least one person is getting the help they need. I have no idea what's happened with Phil or what's going to happen with him, but I did make it clear to my mom that he is not my dad. He's not even my stepdad. I'm not a kid, and he's never going to be either one outside of legal effery. She relented pretty quickly. I think she's finally broken out of her shell at least. And we've agreed that if things go ahead, that's going to be a huge red line, though I don't know if he'll want to be friends with me after all of this, LMAO. Anyway, thanks for the help on the original post, y'all. OP's edit, bit of an update, as I can't respond to everybody, but I think the marriage is off. Phil has gone AWOL again and has had a huge argument with his family as they've demanded he call off the wedding and date people his own age. This apparently made him snap. Me and my mom have met his mom and older brother who said Phil is very insecure around girls his own age and has never been able to talk to them, hence his preference. This very deeply upset my mom, and after some begging from all of us, she has agreed to push the wedding back, though she wants to keep dating him. I have no idea where Phil is, though his brother assumes he's couch surfing with his D&D friends, who have been sending me and my brother some not nice messages because clearly we're just jealous of the MILF hunter. If any of you socially inept Fs are reading this, I don't need to chase middle-aged folk because I can talk to boys my own age like a normal person. Peace. Well, OP, even though your mom's not going through a really nice time, I think this is a great and positive update. Hopefully the person that's gonna help your mom unpack all of this will do a really good job and your mom will start seeing things clearly. But in the meantime, here's wishing you all the best in the future. Take care and thanks for sharing. And now let's finish this video with a mood booster post. This post is from the subreddit Malicious Compliant and it's by user, I would think, Leet Dude. You want it fast? Fine, but don't cry when it blows up in your face. I work at a big retail chain where the stockroom is the Wild West and chaos is the norm. We recently got a new supervisor, Sarah, who seems to think she's running the Navy SEALs or something. She's obsessed with speed, constantly on us about how we need to get things done faster. Doesn't matter if it's done right, as long as it's done fast. So one day, during peak restock time when we're drowning in boxes, Sarah storms in with her clipboard and her best "I'm in charge" face. She corners me while I'm halfway through a massive inventory check and says, "You're taking way too long with these. Just get through them quickly. We don't have time to check every single item." I try to explain that rushing inventory checks is a bad idea, but she cuts me off with a condescending smile. "If you can't speed this up, maybe this job isn't the right fit for you," she says, all smug, like she just dropped a bombshell. Alright, Sarah, you want speed? Let's see how fast things can spiral out of control. So I take her words to heart and decide to follow her instructions exactly. The next day, I'm scheduled for another inventory check. Instead of my usual process where I count everything carefully, I decide to play Sarah's game. I glance at the shelves and make up numbers that seem about right. I don't even bother opening boxes to check if what's inside matches the labels. I fly through the whole process, marking items off like I'm speedrunning a video game. What usually takes me 2 hours, I finish in just 20 minutes. Sarah sees me finish up and I can see her eyes light up. She walks over grinning ear to ear. "See, that wasn't so hard, was it? If you keep this up, you might even get a little bonus this month," she says, patting herself on the back for her brilliant leadership skills. I roll. Fast forward a week and the store manager, Mike, calls an emergency meeting. The inventory reports have come back and they're a total disaster. According to the report, we're missing thousands of dollars worth of products. It looks like we either lost half the stock or we're running some underground black market. Mike's pissed. Customers are complaining about out-of-stock items and the regional manager is breathing down his neck. Mike turns to Sarah and asks her to explain how this could have happened. Sarah, trying to save face, immediately points at the team and says, "They must have messed up the counts. They weren't thorough enough." She's throwing us under the bus without a second thought. This is where I decide to strike. I raise my hand and say, "Actually, I did exactly what Sarah told us to do. She said to skip checking the items and just get it done as quickly as possible. I was just following orders." You could hear a pin drop. Mike slowly turns to Sarah, his expression going from confused to furious. "Is this true?" he asks, narrowing his eyes at her. Sarah is stammering now, trying to backtrack. "Well, I didn't mean to skip it entirely. I just wanted to speed it up." But it's too late. The damage is done. Mike's already fuming. "So you decided to cut corners on the one thing that affects our bottom line? You do realize we have to do a full recount now because of this mess, right?" And that's exactly what happened. The next day, Sarah and a few unlucky team members spent 12 hours redoing the entire inventory check from scratch. The rest of us get to enjoy watching them sweat it out while we handle our regular duties. It's glorious. As they're counting, I'm sure to walk by every so often and ask, "Need any help speeding things up? I could skip a few checks for you if that helps." The look on Sarah's face every time is pure rage mixed with embarrassment. She can't say anything because she knows I'm just doing what she asked for. By the end of it, we found thousands of dollars in discrepancies. Turns out, rushing through inventory checks leaves a lot of room for errors. Who knew? I roll. The regional manager isn't happy and Sarah ends up getting a formal warning. She stops harping on us about speed after that and even tries to be extra nice whenever I'm around. Guess she realized that maybe, just maybe, some tasks shouldn't be rushed. The best part? A couple of weeks later, I get a small bonus for outstanding attention to detail in helping fix the inventory mess. Oh, the irony. Sarah couldn't even look me in the eye when I got the bonus slip, and every time she walks by me now, I just give her a friendly smile and say, "Don't worry, boss, I'm working as fast as you want." Well, OP, that is exactly what she wanted, and she got it. Also, horrible leadership skills. As soon as her methods were called into question, she threw the team under the bus instead of taking accountability. That's the difference between a boss and a leader. A leader knows it's their responsibility when the team quote-unquote F's up, which in this case didn't happen because it was her. Thanks for sharing, OP. And that's it for today's video. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. Now, if you've gotten to this point in the video, I assume that you like these stories that I'm reading out. So here are a couple more that you might enjoy. And if you don't have any time to watch another story right now, save it for later. And also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button.